And Ayub Khan suspected that Skandar Mirza is intriguing against him and he might remove him from his office. So that was one motivation. And the second motivation was that Ayub Khan had offered what some historic accounts say, and it is still not very, I think we need to explore it further because this fact has not come out very clearly in history, that if you look at the 58 coup, immediately after that, Americans were given base in Peshawar. So many people allege that that coup was part of a deal which Ayub Khan had with the Americans and quid pro quo of his recognition of his government that he would give them a base in Peshawar. So that was the motivation for the first military coup. Then in the second case, when in 67, what we saw was that there was a popular agitation in the country against Ayub Khan. People were demanding democracy. And when Ayub Khan decided to hand over power to the the Speaker of National Assembly, who happened to be from East Pakistan, Yahya Khan, who was the army chief, when he saw that now this speaker from East Pakistan would be the new president, he saw his chance going and he almost snatched power at gunpoint from Ayub Khan, from his own president. So where was the failure of politicians? It was just simple lust of power of the second army chief, General Yahya Khan, which prompted the second martial law. The third martial law came on 5th of July 1977 after there was an agitation in the country because PNA, the opposition alliance, alleged that there was massive rigging, and as a result of that agitation, finally both People's Party and PNA leadership came to negotiations, and Professor Ghafoor is still alive in Karachi, and he has mentioned it in his book, and Nawabzada Nasrullah Khan, who died a few years ago, recorded this fact of history through his statements and mentioned it quite a few times, that both People's Party and PNA leaders had developed a consensus to hold new elections. So then, if that consensus and that agreement had been reached, what was the motivation for martial law? There was no. Then what has happened is that there is this new account which has come out by some, that Mr. Bhutto felt that General Ziaul Haq has let him down, and therefore he wanted to change the army chief. And once he called for that information from Mr. Ghulam Ishaq Khan, who was Secretary General of Defence, this information, people allege, was passed on to General Ziaul Haq, and when he learnt of his removal, that was the primary motivation for him to impose martial law. Then 1999, when General Musharraf imposed the martial law, a few days later after he had imposed his martial law, he was asked that if he had not been dismissed, would Mr. Nawaz Sharif still be the Prime Minister? And I heard with my own ears his interview on BBC. He said, yes, if I had not been dismissed, Mr. Sharif would still be the Prime Minister. So that means that if Musharraf had not been dismissed, there would be no corruption in Pakistan, Pakistan would not be isolated, and Pakistan's federation would be just fine. All those 7 points which he later on made a charge sheet against the previous government that, I took over power because Pakistan was totally bankrupt and Pakistan was going down the drain. All that would have been a story or some fiction if he had not been dismissed. So what primarily prompted that martial law was Kargil operation, which he had launched without approval of the government to sabotage the Lahore peace process, which was very honorable peace process for India-Pakistan. So, why I have shared or given you this overview of history is that you as young Pakistanis must know that one of the fundamental challenges we face in Pakistan is the complexity of civil-military relations. And unless we reset the civil-military relationship equilibrium in light of our constitution, there is very little we can do, because we will continue to receive what we have been receiving. As they say in English, if you keep doing what you are doing, you will keep getting what you are getting. And if you want to stop getting what you are getting, you have to stop doing what you are doing. So we need to address this issue of civil-military relations with new perspective and reset it in the light of the Constitution, where both military and the democratic institutions must perform their legitimate roles in light of the Constitution. So this to us is a fundamental problem, and this continues to be the undercurrent of many political crises which we see in Pakistan today. Now, it is very, because of the time, what I will do is I'll just skip many of the points I had written, and I'll try to cover them in question-answer session, because I think that's where I can maybe share with you some more thoughts, and also it is important to know what are your concerns and what are your feelings about what's happening in Pakistan. What I would just like to say is that Pakistan today, in my view, faces some very fundamental challenges, and in my view, those are 6 important challenges which we are trying to respond to. The first is economy. Our party believes that the mother of all problems is a weak economy. If we today complain of loss of national sovereignty, it is because of our weak economy. If our economy is weak, then there is no threat to our national sovereignty. Now, how do you regain your national sovereignty? Today there are only 2 models. One model is the North Korea model, that you hold a weapon of mass destruction in your hand and create a nuisance value and become a security state where you terrorize people with your nuisance and people keep a distance from you, but at the cost of your people. Just as in North Korea, there is a security elite which monopolizes the resources. The people are poor, the security elite is prospering, the North Korean state has a nuisance value, and the world keeps a little distance from them. Don't mess up with them, they have a nuisance value. So that is one model. The second model to regain national sovereignty is to go for the economic miracle like Japan did, Malaysia did, Korea did, Singapore did, and now China and India are following the same model. So that is the second model, that where you create prosperity for your people, and through that prosperity and integration into the global economy, you create your self-respect, you regain your national sovereignty, and you become a responsible member of the international community and the global economy. That is, I think, the main decision for us, that which way we want to go, whether we want to become a security state or we want to become a people state, a welfare state, or an economic state where we take economic development as the centerpiece of our national priority. And we think that just as in 1991 we brought a paradigm shift in South Asia. Many of you would be very young at that time, that it was our government in 1991 which brought policies of deregulation, privatization and liberalization in South Asia. And Indian government, when Manmohan Singh was finance minister at that time, 2 years later, they borrowed our policies and they introduced them in India, and ever since they have continued to follow those policies with consistency, and as a result you see India is where it is. But unfortunately in our case, our government was dismissed within a year, and we could not keep continuity of those policies, and there was a U-turn on those policies. Similarly, it was our first regime which built motorway in South Asia, which was the first motorway in South Asia. Probably at that time in India nobody knew the meaning of motorway. It was our government which laid fiber optic as the first modern digital telecommunication backbone in South Asia. And India was probably nowhere close to us at that time. But we could not continue on that journey. Otherwise, probably we would also have a mini Bangalore in either Karachi or Lahore, a couple of them in Pakistan. It was our government which made the first IT policy, but unfortunately we were not allowed to implement it. Similarly, if you look at the new airports, the first government gave the Karachi airport, the second government gave the Lahore airport, and in Delhi they have built a new airport just very recently. But we were doing all that in the 90s, but our governments were not allowed to continue. Similarly, when we did Vision 2010 in 98, a 12-year perspective plan to create the foundation for a knowledge economy, I remember that when in Colombo, there was a conference of economists organized by World Bank. So Indian economists were stunned that how could Pakistan have such a progressive development plan for 21st century and for next 12 years. And they were all getting copies from me to sort of see that what we have done and how we have done. But then, unfortunately, after 1 year, that plan was abandoned. And 3 years later, when Mr. Abul Kalam became the President of India, he launched on the same lines India Vision 2020. So it is not that we do not know what to do. We were not allowed to implement the reforms or the new economic doctrine in Pakistan, which could have been a game changer for us, because that would have also recast the power of different actors in Pakistan. So the governments which were really going for an economic miracle were dismissed or were sabotaged or not allowed to carry on, and that was a major setback. Similarly, in 1909, when Mr. Vajpayee came over to Lahore, what more decent, respectful peace could you expect in South Asia, where Prime Minister of India comes on bus, stands on Minar-e-Pakistan and says कि जब पार्टीशन हुई तो हमारे बड़े हमें वो घाव लगे या क्या वो जख्म लगे, लेकिन आज हम ये कहते हैं कि पाकिस्तान का सिक्का है, पाकिस्तान की सील है और उसको हम मानते हैं. So that was, I think, a major breakthrough for Pakistan, that we had such a respectable peace deal with India, but unfortunately that was also sabotage. So I think the economy is the first issue. Second is civil-military balance, how to recast it. Third is extremism and violence. All this extremism and violence we see today is also an offshoot of military regimes. It was all under military regimes that these groups were prepared for proxy wars, for their own agendas. No democratic government has ever had any interest in developing such militant groups for its political objectives, because political groups thrive through politics of ballot, and these people believe in politics of bullet. So if we give them space, actually we are putting ourselves out of business. So therefore, no political government would ever like militancy to grow in our country. So that also is an issue which now we have to address. And extremism is not just religious extremism. Mind you, I mean, we normally just categorize extremism with religious groups. There are religious extremist groups and there are non-religious extremist groups. Look what is happening in Karachi. All that target killing which goes in Karachi is also a form of extremism, where you have no tolerance for other ethnic groups and you brutally kill them, murder them, just like those fanatics, religious fanatics, they kill those who do not believe in their ideology. So we have different kinds of violence in Pakistan, and that we need to fix. Fourth, governance and rule of law. Fifth, energy. And sixth, Pakistan-India and Pakistan-Afghanistan relations. So to me, these 6 issues will determine the future course of our country, and we have to address them very significantly, very seriously, because Pakistan is a country which in 20 years will become the 5th most populous country. Our population by 2030 will be 300 million plus. By 2050, we would have crossed 400 million mark. So imagine it is a 180 million population today. So if by 2050 We are 400 million plus. The land is the same. Water supply is becoming scarce. 25 years ago, there was 5,000 cubic meter per capita basis water availability, which today has dropped to about 1,200. And when it comes to 1,000, Pakistan will become water scarce country in the world. So we have these basic issues to see that, with this growing bulge of population, by 2030, we also estimate that there will be 175 million workforce. In order to provide them opportunities, we need to grow at least at 8 to 9%. So if we are not growing at 8 to 9%, we would not be able to provide them opportunities to work. And so this dividend, which we all say, that we have a great demographic dividend, might as well become a great liability for us, because when these young boys and girls will grow, they will all want food to eat, they will want shelter, they will want also employment to survive. And if society will not give them the skills, the opportunities, they may become a big destabilizing force. So with this, I would like to conclude and just say that, we have some very challenging times, but the good news is none of these problems is unsolvable. None of these problems falls in a category for which other countries have not found solutions. All the economic, social problems which we face today are solvable, are doable and manageable. So therefore, I believe, we are not an underdeveloped country, we are just an undermanaged country. If we just put our governance right, if we just apply more common sense, so we do not require a revolution, we do not require a drastic change, we require reform while maintaining order. If you look at recent history, the biggest and the most successful example of change has been China. And the parallel and the difference between China and Soviet Union was that in Soviet Union, Gorbachev went for change. He said, no, in order to bring change, you need to change the structure. But once the structure collapsed, the whole state collapsed. But what Deng Xiaoping did was, he was more pragmatic. He said, yes, we need change, but we need to preserve order. And within order, we will bring an incremental change. So, and he brought reform while maintaining his political stability. As a result, China is a success story in the world. So in Pakistan also, I think the way forward is we need to follow the example of China. We need to follow the example of Malaysia. We need to follow the example of Turkey. The recent example is of Turkey. That how can you build within the system through reform, through better management, and not lose political stability. Because if you have political instability and if you have chaos, then all the good things you want to do they just remain as your very good intentions, but they do not help in the real world. So I hope that next election will be very defining in Pakistan, and we will have a government which will have the capability and the vision as well as the program to fix our economy right, because if our economy is right, then all our problems are taken care of. You have the resources, you need resources to invest in education, you need resources to invest in health. Our allocations in education and health have been going down, and as a result, you may have seen very recently that we dropped in the Human Development Index from 125 to 145th position, which basically is very sad commentary on the affairs of the state, that which way we are heading, because today in a knowledge revolution age, it is the quality of human resources which will determine success of any country. So let me just conclude here, and then I'd like to take questions, and I am here to take questions for as long as you have the patience to sit here. I have no problem because Bill Gates said that the best learning is by talking to the most unhappy customers. When you talk to the most unhappy customers, that is where you have your best learning. So it will be a pleasure, to have your criticism, your questions, and through which we will also have an opportunity to learn. And I conclude with this, verse, कि खुदा करे कि मेरे एक भी हम वतन के लिए हयात जुर्म ना हो, जिंदगी वबाल ना हो, और खुदा करे कि मेरी अर्ज़े पाक पर उतरे वो फसले गुल जिसे अंदेशा ज़वाल ना हो. Thank you.